a secret now. I see dead people.
Welcome to Blondes and Booze. You are about to embark on a journey, one that often leads to more questions than answers. But fear not, your host, Krista, Aaron, and Brandy have the experience, the perseverance, and yes, even the gifts to pull back the veil and allow us to glimpse the other side. They will share not only their experiences, but will introduce you to world-renowned researchers and experiencers to help you find answers in the murky waters of what we call the paranormal. Their bonds with each other reach far beyond friendship, resulting in a pull no punches approach to the many subjects they explore. Their goal? To open eyes, hearts, and even minds to what lies on the other side, and the answers residing there.
Hey everybody, welcome. How are you?
Welcome everybody.
How are you, Brandy?
Well, you know, I have been battling my migraine like all afternoon. I did Bigfoot Michigan Rob's brunch show with him today, and like right towards the end of that, I started getting a little bit of a migraine, and I'm telling you what, it has been one of the worst ones I've had lately. You know, because I'm really light sensitive right now. That's why I have my hat kind of pulled down so I can keep that light out of my face.
See, a hat makes me get a headache worse.
Sometimes it does me too, but right now it's the light is the problem. So
yeah,
just trying to keep it out of my eyes right now.
You know? You can sit in the dark and do the show.
I can't just turn off all the lights.
Sure you can.
Yeah, make it more spooky, you know, but I've been doing really good and not dealing with these migraines for a long time. And then today is just, you know.
Gotcha. I understand. I left work a little early today. I finished up my Christmas shopping and took my kids out to eat, and here I am.
Well, dang it. You've been really busy, productive.
Right. That we have been. We got a good show tonight. We have Heather Moser, Small Town Monsters, on tonight, but we're not talking monsters. Well, we are kind of talking monsters, but on the human side of it.
The human kind of monster. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's going to be good. You guys definitely will want to watch this. Brandy, remind everybody what to watch this week, and we'll just get on with the show.
Sure, absolutely. On Mondays at 7 p.m. Central, it's Texas Front Porch with myself and Tex. On Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central, it's Rob and Tex with Beyond BMR. On Wednesdays at 7 o'clock, it's Donnie Cho Says Stuff. And at 8 o'clock, it's Barton Nunnelly with Inhumanoids with his lovely wife, Letitia. I was trying to get that all together, but it just didn't quite come out right.
We'll blame it on the migraine.
I know. On Thursdays at 12 p.m. Central, it's Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob. And I messed that up too, because you're no longer on Tuesdays. I keep thinking, or on Thursdays, I keep thinking you're on then, and it's Tuesdays. I'm just screwing this all up. So let's just keep going. Just keep going. It's a migraine. So on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Central, of course, it's us, Blondes and Booze. And on Friday at 8 p.m., it's Blondes, Booze, and the Woo. On Saturdays at 2 p.m. Central, Tex and Danielle Diva release their newest episode of Infamous Minds. And I think that's it for right now. That's all we got.
I think you're right.
That's all we got.
One more thing, though, I want to mention. I'm going to put it up there. I know you guys are probably tired of hearing it and seeing it, but we got to do it. So the Alabama Bigfoot Conference, June 7th and 8th. If you're able to go, come and see everybody. It's going to be fun. You got a good lineup. You got Tex. He's the MC. You got Barton Nunnelly, Daryl Denton, Brandy and I, Jason McLean, Greg Ogles, Martin Groves, and BMR, Bigfoot Michigan Rob. So tickets are on sale now at BamaBigfootConference.com.
Woo! I'm glad you said that. I just don't have it in me tonight.
I hear you. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and bring Heather up.
Yes, please do.
Hi.
She can help me stop stumbling right here, for real.
Oh, yeah.
I hear you. How are you?
Thank you, Catherine.
I am well. I am tired, but that is pretty normal for me, especially this time of year. So,
Gotcha.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm good.
I understand.
Well.
Definitely. Well, we're glad that you agreed to do this again with us. You're just becoming like a regular on Blondes and Booze. We need to, like, when you're on, we'll name it like Blondes, Booze, and the Brunette or something.
Well, she could either put her hair in braids or wear a blonde wig. Okay, that's it. That's what you're gonna have to do. You're just gonna have to.
Yeah, that's funny. That's too funny.
So I heard that you guys are gearing up for your kickoff for Small Town Monsters in 2024. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we're gearing up for Kickstarter. It starts on February 1st. And that is the main way that we survive the year, with the help and support of people who believe in what we're doing. So it helps fund the movies that are coming out, and people will get awesome rewards like early access to our films. There's apparel that'll be out. Just a lot of things that you'll only get through Kickstarter if you back us. So
awesome.
Looking forward to that. February 1st it starts, and then it'll last for about a month. Mm-hmm.
And then you have
too.
Right. And then in June, I think it's June 29th, you have Monster Fest 2, right?
Monster Fest 2. Yes.
Woo!
Yes. It is going to be a lot of fun.
Did you have any vendor cancellations yet? Do you know?
I have no idea. That's Courtney. That's on Courtney's end.
I hear you.
We're going to have to just start spamming her like email.
Yeah.
Like here.
Right.
Just a question.
Your conference is in Ohio, correct? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's in Canton, Ohio. It's going to be held at the Doubletree by Hilton in downtown Canton, Ohio. And the night before, we'll have a special screening of one of our new films. And then Saturday all day, we got vendors, speakers. We have live podcasts, just a lot of meet and greet situations happening. And it's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. I hope we're able to get up there to it.
Yeah, me too.
We hope we can get a table.
Yeah. Put in a good word, Heather.
Okay. All right. Word submitted.
We are submitted though, everybody. We do have our name on the list, and whenever they get to us, they get to us if they do this year. So, but we're waiting to find out, and by golly, we'll be happy to be there.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Right.
There we go. So the title of this show is The Axe Murder Club. And this was about a book that we had talked about a while back. I guess a month or two back. And it's the book was titled The Man from the Train.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it's true stories of early 1900s axe killings, axe murders. So, and I'm not going to lie, guys, I was supposed to read the book, but I work so much, and then I do blonde stuff, and then I got family. I just have not had the time to do it. So I apologize. But I know Brandy has read the book.
Yeah, I mean, and I got through most of it, unfortunately. I planned on getting through the rest of it today, but that did not pan out. But let me tell you about this. I mean, there's lots of theories in this book. And I'm going to tell you this, that this is the weirdest thing I've ever read in my life.
Heather, you've read the book, correct?
Yeah, and then the parts that I didn't finish, I did skim through and took notes on. So
There you
We've
go.
got this. We got the whole book covered in one way or another.
Yeah, I mean it's and when she says the early 1900s, we're talking like early like 1909. Is that when it started to begin, or they started to take notice of what was happening?
Well, Velisca
Yeah,
was in 1912. So whatever, if
Right.
anything was before then, or
Yeah, so they kind of pin the first, if we're going by the man from the train, the guy that they think was the man from the train.
Mhm.
Through their research, they think the first murder was around 1898, but nobody connected the dots until closer to 1909, 1911, because
Yeah.
of the way the news organizations worked.
Mhm.
Like newspapers weren't really talking to each other. Officers
where did they think the first murder was?
The first murder was in Florida, I believe. Or no,
Wow.
not Florida, Massachusetts, Brookfield, Massachusetts.
Wow.
That's right. It's the biggest murder that he had, I think, was in Florida. Like 9 people
Oh my.
he took out in that one.
Velisca was close.
Yeah. Velisca was very close.
Well, Velisca, I think there was 8.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was 8. And you know, and I when they started basically putting the story together, what they can actually put together, it started with the Meadows family. And the thing is that there are so many families that you got to understand that this guy was killing people for over 13 years.
Wow.
So
Paranormal Among Us asks, where can we get the book? I know you can get it on Amazon, and you can also get it on eBay.
I got mine on eBay.
Mhm.
It was a used book, but let me tell you, when I got it, it was in great condition, and I think I paid like $7 for it altogether with tax.
Nice.
So you can buy the hardback or a brand new or whatever, but the way I do books when I read them, I don't buy brand new books, because this is how I read, and I'm turning pages and I'm going through, and then I'm flipping back and I'm folding things down. So when I'm really getting into a book, I don't buy new ones.
Yeah.
Ever. I ruin them because I really get into them, and it's like you find yourself like in this type of story that I'm gripping that book like super hard, going, I can't believe this is actually happening.
Yeah.
So let's start by going over what this guy's MO was. Well,
let's talk about the murders
What
first.
did he do?
Can we talk about
every
the
murder
murders
scene
first?
that was weird?
Well, there's when it comes to the man from the train, they had a list of about like 30 things that were his MO. And that's how they would, because when the book starts out, they go through a ton of murders, but not all of them are ones that they attribute to the man from the train. They're just saying, listen, there were a lot of people that were murdered, a lot of people that could fall into this category. But when you look at the details, there's a handful. I mean, there's still a lot that fall under the serial killer guy, but there's a handful of things that kind of fall into the category here. So one of the most important thing, the reason they call it the man from the train, is the houses were all within walking distance of train tracks. They were all in areas where there were like next to no police officers, so very rural areas. He used the blunt side of an axe to kill people, not the sharp side of an axe, which we talked about earlier before we got on air here, which differentiates him from another serial killer at the time. He would lock up the house really tight. There might be a window that was open for him to get in and out, but otherwise the doors were locked. He would cover the windows, cover mirrors, things like that. He covered their heads, and to kind of slow down the blood splatter, I guess, is the theory. But he would also leave the axe at the scene. He didn't take it with him. So it was something that was the family's. It was like their axe that he took. He didn't bring his own. He took theirs. And the idea was that most of these houses had a barn or an outbuilding of some sort where he could watch and monitor what the family was doing. And then it would be shortly after dusk. So I guess they said within an hour or so of midnight is about when he would strike. And yeah, there's more to it. Like most of them didn't have dogs to alert the family and stuff like that.
But yeah, they even talked about he was on a pattern that he'd kill like every other Sunday.
Yes, that was the other thing. He would kill on the weekends. And
and that when he was killing these people, he would actually cover their face, which Chris and I were kind of going back and forth about this, and we're like, save it for the show, save it for the show. He covered their face, I believe, so he doesn't get the blood all over him. So if by any chance he was saw by anybody when he left there, because he was not the type of person to just kill and go. He would meander in the house and you know, do things within the house and not be in any hurry to leave.
Right. Wow. Yeah. And that was another thing. He didn't, the sticking around in the house, and he also didn't steal things. There weren't instances of him like taking money or jewelry or anything like that. Everything was left undisturbed. So he just came in to kill. He also had a tendency to, he had a fetish for young prepubescent girls, which that was a pattern that they showed as well throughout the families. Another thing that the authors of this book would use to kind of sort out which murders may have been him versus ones that may be other people. But yeah, he would linger in the house. They said a lot of times they'd find like wash basins that had bloody water because he'd washed his hands, cleaned himself up a little bit before he left. Yeah.
So that basically tells me right there that putting a cloth over them while he beat them would make more sense. I mean, because if he's making sure his hands are washed and all that stuff before he leaves the house, he's trying to wash that stuff off him. He doesn't want to be covered because some of these murders were so gruesome that there was blood splatter all over. And
see, my thing is maybe since he did clean himself up, maybe he just didn't want to see like the faces or, you know, of the victims.
Yeah,
that's possible.
I also wonder if that wasn't something that he did after he had killed them, because a lot of the people were dead, like in their beds. And in the case of like Valiska, only the girl had defensive like wounds, or it looked like she had tried to fight back. So everybody else is asleep, which to me would mean you're not going to be able to get a pillowcase or something over someone's head without some more waking up in the process of that. So maybe it was a thing, just like he covered up all the windows and the mirrors and stuff. It was just another covering on what he did. I don't know.
You know, these people must have been really sound sleepers, because honestly, I feel like
that's the other thing. If the husband and wife were sleeping in the same room and they were both killed, do you not think that one of them would hear that? I would hear that.
That's what I'm saying. You would hear movement or something, wrestling or something. I mean, I don't know. I wonder what he did to silence the other one.
Right. Well, there was some speculation that he may have been using chloroform, which that would make sense. That would make sense, because you can, like, if a husband and wife were sleeping in a room, you can put them both out, and you could probably get away with hitting them. Yeah. You know, without somebody else in another room hearing. You could probably get away with that, especially if it were children. Yeah. But I don't know if that was always the case, or if he did use it at all. I mean, they said they didn't smell it or anything like that, but my gosh, by the time they find them bodies, they're already starting to decompose. And the smell would be gone. Right. I mean, how would they really know if he used it or if he didn't use it?
Right. Well, and at this time, there were so many things that, so many advancements that didn't exist yet when it came to investigating the crime scene. So even if that's something that we could figure out today, it certainly wasn't something they could figure out back then. Because as soon as they opened the doors, people were coming into the scene.
Right. And I know Villisca, I can only speak for that one, but the crime scene was just demolished because anybody and everybody and their brother came in to see the bodies.
Yes.
So I wonder how many of those other cases was, the same way.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there were some that they mentioned in the book where people came in and within 2 days of the bodies being discovered, the neighborhood had come in and scrubbed the house.
Yeah.
Just to clean up the blood. But also the authors of the book also make sure to credit the officers and saying that in these places there might have only been 1 or 2 officers. So for them to monitor the house constantly, it was very difficult for them to do, almost impossible. But yeah, at this point in time, they didn't have a lot of they were talking about the early parts of fingerprinting, like people were starting to look into fingerprinting, and that was the late end of this murder spree that was happening. But yeah, and also you couldn't go by, like Jordan had brought up in the comments here about yellow journalism. You couldn't go by necessarily what the newspapers were saying, because they would use hearsay a lot. Like,
they would just talk to
whomever, and then it would be put in the paper as fact. And that ended up being, between that and then just the way that things worked, there were a lot of people that because of this man were arrested, convicted, executed, or lynched. And they were not the ones that did it, at least according to this book.
Yeah. How many people were murdered according to the book? According to the book.
According to the book, they said that there were about 8 families a year.
Wow.
That he had murdered.
8 families a year.
Yeah. That's
so depending on the size of the family. I mean, I kind of rounded it up to, over 100 in a 12, 13 year span, or however long that he went, because we're not for sure. We're not really for sure of when he started and when he ended. That's the whole thing about this guy. Like I said, they were trying to, say that these killings in the late 1890s were attached to him, but they're not for sure, because we all know by just watching murder mysteries, listening to the stories, that usually how they start out, serial killers, how they start out are not how they end up. It's kind of like they hone what they do. They kind of dial in. So their first one may have been super messy.
Yeah.
And they couldn't necessarily tie it to the rest of them because it was different than the ones that they started tying together.
So Spillenty has a question. Says, so was he discovered and arrested, or was this after he died?
So he was never, the killer was never caught. This is purely speculation by these authors. Basically what they started with, looking at the Villisca murders and recognizing that the hallmarks of this murder would not be typical of someone who just did their first killing.
Right.
And then expanded the search to other areas within that time frame that kind of met the same signs, and then just followed that pattern back in time and then forward in time. They saw a lull in 1908, I believe. There was nothing there. So they're guessing that he was arrested on some sort of like petty crime or something for a while. Something had happened to him that he wasn't active, but then it starts back up again in 1909. And then
happens with, I was going to say, which happens with a lot of serial killers. There will be a lull in their killing patterns because of something happened in their life.
Right. So whatever happened to him, he had a year off, and then everything kind of ends around 1912 is when the last one happened. And then there's a huge stretch until 1922, which then they hop over to Germany. and they attribute a murder that happened over there that had all the same signs to this particular man, possibly.
Mhm.
But they also explain that by that point, he would have been 60 years old. He would have crossed the ocean to go back. Of course, the guy that they said was the murderer, they think, was a German immigrant. So they argue that he went back to Germany and then committed. Yeah, that's exactly that one that is said right there that I don't know how to pronounce is the one
Yeah, I
that
can't
they
pronounce that one
attribute to him.
either.
So, and that was in 1922.
Wow. So
Yeah, I mean, because he committed the murder and it had a lot of the same similarities. Would it make sense for him, since they were hot on him for a long time? They were looking for him because they knew that he was following the train tracks.
Right.
Would it make sense for him to go back overseas? Absolutely. Did it take him some time to get there? Yes, it would. And on top of all of that, wouldn't you kind of die down in your activity? So when you made that trip, you know, they wouldn't be hot, looking for you right then and there. I mean, that would make sense to me.
Right.
All roads lead to that person, but he was never convicted.
Yeah, but the roads lead to it now.
As we started talking about, like in the early days, we had the Meadows family, I've got them written down here, the Hardy family, the Hood family, the Schutz family, and all of these families were right there between 1909 and 1912, right in that time frame.
Yeah.
So
but
I guess
let me say that during this,
I have a question. So like these murders, did that many a year. Okay. So I know Villisca's in Villisca, Iowa. You had said the one was in Florida. So is it like all the states between Iowa and Florida that murders happened?
Oh man, they were in Pennsylvania, Ohio, you name it. They were there. Kansas City, they were there.
Anywhere that the trains could go through.
Yep.
Pretty much.
Wow.
It was following the train tracks.
So somebody was hitching a ride going from town to town, sounds like.
Exactly.
And it's not even necessarily town to town. It was more time frame. Like there for a while, like they were stating that he would kill every other Sunday. Now, why he did that is, I don't know, to give him time in between from one place to another. I can't remember all the details out of my head right now, but I know that there was one time he had a double. It was a double murder.
Yeah, a double event.
He had a double event, which was out of character for him.
Wow.
So it's really hard to really dissect this guy's mind, because
sure,
you don't know what his name was, you don't know how he grew up, you don't know not a thing about him. And what I was going to say, in the early 1900s, you could be your local baker and turn around and say, hey, I'm a private investigator.
Right.
Even if you were an amateur, even if you knew nothing about solving crimes and forensics or whatever they had available at that time, you could just do it. If they paid you, go ahead, you can do it.
Mark has a good point here. Mark has a good point here. He said, was he a hobo riding the trains or a paying traveler? So many things he could be. Very true.
You don't know. I would assume that he was just catching trains. That would be my thing, is that he was just catching trains. I don't believe he would have the money to keep traveling on the train like that.
Well, and the thing is too, okay, so you got to think, if he did it every other Sunday, so he's got to have time to get from point A to point B, and then he's got to have time to find a victim family,
right?
And then figure out his motive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Because he did take time to monitor the family, to know their patterns, to wait till they were home, till they were in bed. So, and the one place and I cannot remember which murder this was, but in one of them, they found a place where clearly he had been sleeping in the barn because
Wow.
the straw had been matted down. And when
Mhm.
you laid down in that spot, there was a hole in the wall so that you could see the house. So
Yeah.
even while he was laying there, he could watch the family.
Yeah.
So that shows that he was monitoring these people more than just a day or two.
Yeah.
To
And
get
that's
their
pretty
patterns.
Yeah.
ballsy to be staying in their barns, you know,
Mhm.
because I mean,
Yeah.
they have livestock, so they're out there. You know what I'm saying? That's just pretty
Right.
pretty
So,
brazen.
right. But you also have to make it clear too, because I see this in chat. There were no robberies.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't take anything.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't take the money, the jewelry, the nothing. He would take nothing. So he was not in it for financial gain.
Right.
Sounds like it was just the thrill of the kill. Sounds like a sick
Right.
individual.
So if we're going back to what I was saying about you could be a private investigator. Okay. So they had no idea what they were doing. And it goes back to what Heather was saying about people would just show up and run through the houses. And, some of them were very rural and they were more contained, but yet they had less investigators
Mm-hmm.
to go through it,
Yeah.
which makes Villisca very unique because Villisca wasn't in the middle of a town. It was right in the middle of town.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
However,
They had
it's not a
neighbors.
very big town. That's
Yeah, but they had neighbors.
They did. They had the lady
You know?
behind who reported the family. Usually they were up out letting the chickens out and things like that, and they weren't. And she's the one that technically found them.
Right. And I
Mhm.
mean, that would be the same thing for me. Now, I've got neighbors across the way, and I'm not, like I would call any kind of friendship or whatever. But if I notice that every Wednesday he's out there mowing his lawn, and then Wednesday comes and goes, and then I wait another day and it doesn't get done, well, then I'm going to start questioning what's happening.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'd be going over there. Hey, is your mower broke? You out of gas? What's going on?
Right.
Do you need some help? That would be me. And I guess that's kind of what all of this stuff had kind of happened.
Mm-hmm.
There was one family where they were rural and they would get their mail dropped off all in one spot. Well, whoever came from their little area and picked up the mail would deliver it to everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then they were noticing that this one family hadn't even picked up their mail, hadn't done anything with it. So that kind of tipped them off that, hey, something's wrong. They're not even getting their mail.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's just the little things. But
Yeah.
not to mention that during this time, if you had a mistress stepping out on your husband, you had a disgruntled ex-partner in work, whatever, you were the one that was automatically taken and most of the time in the early days convicted of the crime.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what you said, they made it so. The police, in their way of thinking is we've got our person and there's nothing that nobody can tell us. I mean, there were some parts where they even overlooked the fact that these individuals that were charged couldn't have done it, and they still convicted them.
Yeah.
And that's even if they made it to trial.
Yeah.
They,
Right.
in the early stories, there was lynch mobs that were going to these jails and killing them before they even had a chance to try them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Paranormal Among Us has a good point. Says with it being smaller towns, you'd think he'd stick out like a sore thumb. He'd have to be really clever not to stand out where people pretty much knew each other. True story.
It's true.
He was a master at hiding, that's for sure.
He could hide, but also they would have been used to transients coming through on the trains.
That's
so maybe
true,
to a
too.
certain extent that works in his favor. But yeah, I don't know how much he was making himself known.
Or the Velisca. One of the suspects was the traveling preacher. Maybe he used a guise like that,
Yeah.
where the community welcomed him in,
I mean, it is true. But according to what the book says, now I'm not sure on all the evidence because I've not done my own research. That could be true, but that would be so far off of his MO that it wouldn't be the man from the train at all.
Yeah.
Because he never made himself known.
Right.
Ever.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one instance where he would take all the guns in the house and he put them under the house.
Really?
Just so they wouldn't have access to them. I don't know. They don't know when they got there or how they got there, but I'm pretty sure this guy was already in the house, took out all the guns while they were not home and hid them. So when he broke in to kill them, that they would not have any access to anything that could, hurt him at all.
So he's been in the houses long enough to scope them out and figure out where they hid their guns.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. He's either been in the house or he's watched them in that house for a long time. And when I mean a long time, I mean hours on end.
Long time,
Hours on end, he's watched them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because they could never determine how long that he had been at that property before it happened.
Yeah.
Right.
They never said.
Yeah. So
I mean,
you two reading the book, your views, do you think it was the same killer in all of these murders, or do you think there was multiple killers in these murders?
Well, they do a great job of setting up their argument of what exactly the man from the train, whoever that would have been, the pattern that he would have followed, and then giving examples. So through that, they even give examples of ones, like I said, that weren't his, but had similar things, and then showed the variation so they can argue why they don't think that one fell into this particular serial killer. For example, one of them, someone was murdered. Whoever had done it clearly it wasn't a copycat type situation, but they were trying to throw people off their scent by, after shooting people, then they beat them with an axe. Which is not what the man from the train did. But because when they came upon the scene and they saw that clearly their heads had been disfigured by a sharp object, then a few people connected and said, well, it must be the same person.
Right.
But the authors, upon looking back, are like, well, no, that's not exactly the same thing. If you go by what they say, I think they do a great job of sticking by that, and it's convincing. So I would say that they did a good job with that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, it also, I mean, in the earlier part, there were also murders going down in Louisiana, and this in New Orleans, and they called him the New Orleans Axeman. His MO was very similar, but it was not the exact same. And there was a point where they were trying to combine the two and say it was one serial killer. It wasn't, because the Axeman versus the man from the train, the Axeman would use the pointed or the sharp end of the axe to where the man from the train would always use the blunt end. But no, he always used the sharp end.
King has a question here, and he asked, could it be a ritual killing? As he stated in the chat, New Orleans does have a lot of voodoo and, things like that down there too.
I don't know. I don't know enough about the axe guy in New Orleans to say one thing or another. I mean, I know what they said in the book about the differences of the blunt side versus the sharp side of the axe, in that he murdered in the early morning hours, where the man from the train would murder closer to midnight. And then also the guy in New Orleans would kill anyone, where the man from the train would make sure usually that there was a young female involved.
Right.
With the murders.
Well, the man from New Orleans would not kill children. That was the thing. is he would pass them up. He would leave them alive in the house.
Yeah.
And just kill the adults.
So that's
in the
a
house.
huge difference.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Right.
But but with the home invasion and using an axe, and you could see where that they would try to tie these together, but there wasn't enough evidence that would that would definitely tie these two together. So they just kind of dropped that and said that it was its own serial killer. But reading this book has opened my eyes to so many different things about how many serial killers there really were at the time. And I mean, we have, I can't even tell you, and I know Tex told me at one time how many active serial killers we have right now.
Mm-hmm. It's sick.
But it's astronomical what it could be.
Yeah. Here's a question for you guys. Cool Hand asked, was there any federal investigation or state investigator assigned to the case?
Yep. Most of the time. Villisca, I think, is the first one that the FBI came in on. Isn't that right, Heather, or am I mistaken?
I think that you're right, because the early ones, they didn't have anything. They wouldn't even go beyond the local police for a lot of them on the early stages.
And if the news made the local newspaper, well, that's, probably all of 100 people got to read that. So,
yeah,
we didn't have the communication system. So it didn't get spread quickly. And I think that was why and how this person was able to kill for so long.
Right. That makes sense.
I mean, because it would be several weeks before people, in the nearest, what we would call a city, the nearest city, would hear of the killings. And by then, this guy's already traveled somewhere else and maybe committed, another crime. They just didn't have it available to them.
Yeah. It's pretty scary stuff, really. If there's that many of those type of people walking among us now, that's just, it's pretty scary.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, you're talking about other killers. Like there was a Castaway family that was located in San Antonio. And everything that happened to the Castaway family is a replica of the Villisca house.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is exactly the same. The windows were drawn. There was pillows in the windows if you could see through, so you couldn't see through. The bodies were covered either under clothing or whatever he had them covered with. They were all, some of them were moved in positions where I'm not even going to say it, but they were moved in positions that were not normal positions. You know what I'm saying? It's just not a normal thing that you would find a deceased body in.
Right.
But you're talking Texas. You're talking Texas along with that. And I mean, even though that they're talking that it could be him or not could be him in San Antonio, it didn't really make any much sense until the railroad went through. And then there was a gold rush. So everybody started going to the west. And then they were going up, through Iowa and out that, because that was considered, west. Yeah. And they started going out that way. Could he have done Texas? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because like I said, they were like I said, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Missouri, Kansas, where else? Many places. So, like I said, it was all hinging on where the railroad was being built and going.
So the only case that I know anything about is the Villisca axe murder house. We had Johnny Hauser on the show, I think in late spring, and we talked about Villisca, and he had talked about the killer, ate breakfast after. Did that happen in other murders too? Because I know you guys said that he kind of hung around, but was he doing things like that in the house as well?
I don't remember anything about breakfast after in the ones that I read. Just by him hanging around after, it was more like the making sure that he was clean, moving the bodies, or positioning. Sometimes he would stack the bodies together,
Yeah.
things like that. So it wasn't just
Right.
killing and immediately leaving. But I don't know about like staying overnight into the next morning or anything like that.
Yeah.
Right. He just was not in a hurry to leave. I mean, he was not leaving until he was ready to go.
Right.
And you know, of course, if you're riding a train and whatever, I'm sure that he had eaten, but in many cases they had talked about there were dirty dishes in the sink, like from the dinner from the night before or whatever. I mean, there are references to that. Could he have done that? Absolutely. He had enough time because people weren't finding these deaths until, you know, days later. It wasn't like it was just a couple hours. These people were laying in there for days and not being found.
I'm going to go here. Was there any bacon at other locations of murders?
I didn't see any.
They didn't mention
that. They mentioned that in Villisca, but
yeah, I didn't see any more references.
Yeah. Because to me, like that would be you know, if there was bacon used the same way as it was in Villisca,
right.
I mean, that would be a key thing to me. You know what I'm saying? But if it wasn't in other murders, maybe it was a different killer then.
Well, you've got to understand this too. There was 3 little girls in that house. 3, not 1, not 2. There was 3. Now, could that have been a brain overload for him and he couldn't handle it? Possibly.
Maybe.
And they were not, I wouldn't call them little girls. They were not toddlers. You know, they were right in their preteens, getting right up to that age.
Weren't they like 8 to 10 years old or something like that?
I think one was 9, one was 11, and I can't remember the age of the other one. But I'm like, they're getting right to that age, you know. So could it be just something that he just couldn't deal with at that point? I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. I didn't read anywhere else where he had any other episodes like that.
Wow.
I
didn't. Heather,
didn't read about having. I didn't read about him having like AIDS that you could see that they found at the scene, but there were other ones where there had been girls around that age that had clearly not been dead, not killed right away, where everybody else was. So, because it happened enough that was one of the hallmarks that the authors give for the man on the train or the man from the train versus some of these other killings. Was that if there was a prepubescent girl there, and then it was clear that she wasn't murdered in the same manner that everybody else was at the same time frame and all of that. Yeah.
But I didn't read anything where he had relations with food. Let's just go with that. Relations with food. I didn't read any more of that. I mean, that was the only case that I could think of that had that. But I mean, the book itself is fascinating. Only because I wouldn't want to be accused of anything back in the early 1900s. Not a thing.
No kidding.
No.
You know, you could end up in prison just because, you know, somebody said something about you.
Yes, Patty, to answer your question. Yes. At least the Villisca one was.
Now, of course, I didn't think that at first. I thought he just killed everybody.
I'm going to let you do this. Lolo asked, you mean relations with food like in the biblical sense? Do you want to explain that?
Yes, exactly. Like Bill Clinton and him having relations. I'm just going to go with that. He had relations. I mean, I didn't really know how to put that, because I have to watch my mouth a lot because my daughter sometimes will watch these shows, so I have to watch my mouth.
We also don't want to be dinged by YouTube either.
Yeah, we don't want that either. But, I mean, it says that our show is not for kids, but you don't have to say everything so bluntly. That's just my thing.
Yeah.
But it was crazy that, I'm wondering if, by the sounds of it, this guy had a thing, and I don't know if it was because of the children or if it was because something happened to him when he was a child.
Mm-hmm.
To what happened if he had a sister who would beat the out of him, or who knows what happened. I mean, I know that these type of people don't really have a reason; they just have a fetish, and I don't know. I mean, like I said, this book is fascinating because it gives you every option in this book about what you want to think. You can go ahead and think. They're not trying to tell you not to. They're just showing you, hey, this is what we have, and this is the way we're going with this. This is what we think happened, and this is who it is.
So real quick, I'm gonna let's kind of switch over on the paranormal side for just a second. So we all know the Villisca is well known as, paranormal happenings going on there. So does any of the other houses that you know of come out with, are they paranormal hotspots or anything like that? Do you guys know?
Well, let's hold on to that because we're at the 52-minute mark and we'll start talking about them houses.
Real quick.
Right after break.
Real quick before we go to break, Paranormal Among Us asked if you could hold the book up again.
Yes, absolutely.
It's The Man from the Train by Bill James.
By Bill James.
Yeah. Yep. All right, guys, give us 5 minutes and we will be right back. Stay tuned and we'll talk a little paranormal too, because Heather went ghost hunting with Brandy. So we can kind of touch on that too. So stay tuned.
Yeah, we're going to touch on that because that was good because I haven't been able to talk to you since then. But yeah.
We'll be right back, everybody. Stay tuned.
my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear, that my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Appreciate everybody sticking around with us. Real quick, I hear people are been reading people commenting on our music and stuff and texted all that. But speaking of music, and I was telling Brandy this when I hopped on, and this is not paranormal related at all, but I don't know if anybody watches The Voice. I personally don't. However, there's a girl, she's 16 years old, and she lives about a half hour from here, that was runner-up on The Voice, and the girl is amazing. If anybody likes any kind of music, the girl can do everything from rock to country. Her name is Ruby Lee. Look her up on YouTube. She's incredible. Anyway, that's it. That's my little plug. Hello?
That's it.
That's it. That's it. So let's go back to the paranormal.
Okay. So the houses that these murders happened in, of course there was a bunch, but I will tell you that one of the things that the man from the tree would do sometimes is actually burn the place down.
Yeah.
So there are a few of the houses that don't exist because he would burn them down, but a lot of the houses don't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think
I'm stuck. I'm having trouble tonight. My internet's going crazy. But the Villisca Axe murder house is the most notable one. That is the one that they talk about most of all. I don't know of any of the other houses. They do talk about some of the houses still standing, but they are occupied.
Gotcha.
Right.
People are living in them, but Villisca is the only one that I know that is available to actually go into. What about you, Heather? Do you know any of the other houses? I think that's it.
Yeah, that's the only one that they had mentioned, that at least was on my radar as well for houses. But yeah, like you said, some were burned down, others they just don't have some of them. I'm not sure that the people living in them would even be aware I guess they'd have to be open for experiences to happen for one, but I don't know how many people know the history of their house back that far to know that something like that happened, unless it was a widely recognized thing, which some of these weren't. I mean, they were for their area at the time, but then it wasn't as widely known as something like what happened with Villisca.
Right. A lot of them were forgotten, being so long ago.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sad. Very sad. It's just.
But like I said, with Villisca, there was so much going on with that one, just because like so many people had gone through. That was the first time the FBI showed up. That they were talking about, again, the private investigators were coming in and actually trying to pin people with the murders so they can extort money out of them. They're like, well, hey, I got all this evidence that says you did it. I'll give you this evidence if you give me this money. And I mean, that kind of thing was going on, and it was going on for years after the fact,
Yeah.
So it was just very, very strange how they were doing things. They were just blackmailing people and all kinds of stuff. It was a hard time to figure out, what happened,
Right.
who did it, because they were so busy blaming whoever.
Yeah.
So it was crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah. Wow. It's just, it is crazy stuff. And I believe the preacher did it in Villisca, though. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. And that could be true. Like I said, we just don't know. I mean, the evidence doesn't say that.
Yeah.
And like I said, the way that the murders went, that it goes along with another serial killer is what I'm saying.
Right.
The man from the train never showed himself visibly to anybody. He was did his thing, and when he was ready, he left, and nobody ever saw him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's switch it over, and let's I think we've talked about the book all we can. Let's talk about your trip to Ohio State, the two of you.
Well, they've heard my story, Heather. It's your turn.
Well, it was less than a week before we showed up that Brandy sends me a message and says, "Hey, we've got an opening. And I know you live in Ohio, so can you make it?" And I'm like, "To Mansfield? Of course I can make it to Mansfield." And so
of course, I'll be right there.
It's like one of my favorite places ever. So we went, and it was how many people were there? Like 13 or 14 people, I think. But we kind of started off in our own little group, the 4 of us, 5 of us sometimes. And I told Brandy from the beginning, I'm like, we have to get up to the West Attic. We've got to get up there just before, because it's a popular place. Things happen up there, but we have to get up there as soon as possible. And so we did. And I was so tickled when Brandy also saw that light thing, the light beam.
I heard all about it.
Yeah. And that just, I mean, it was validating in a way, because it's something, it's hard enough to explain what it is. So then to try to tell people, when you go up here, there's a chance you're going to see this thing made of light that is like human form and will walk and crawl and illuminate the walls if it gets close to it. Like it's so difficult to explain, but then to have people there that get to see it as well, it was fantastic.
Yeah. So how many times had you been there, Heather?
That was probably, I think, my 3rd time investigating there. 3rd or 4th time. And I've been there many times before for like tours during the day and stuff. But yeah, that was my 3rd or 4th time there investigating. And it was the best. I was so excited that Brandy was there, and so excited that we had the experiences that we did, and that was a repeatable thing, because we went back to the West Attic multiple times, and each time we still saw this thing, which is exactly what happened the last time that I was there. It was a repeatable phenomenon. And
so do you guys feel like it's residual then, maybe?
It's really difficult for me to think that it's residual, only because it would respond. At least, especially the first time that I was there, it would respond to if we would get up, which we didn't really do this, but the first time that I was there, some of the people in the group would get brave enough to stand up and walk toward it, and it would back away. It never,
Oh, wow.
it would not let you get up to it.
Which
It would
shows
back
some
away.
intelligence then.
Yeah. But when you're calm enough and you sit there long enough, it gets closer to you. And that seemed to be, I mean, I don't know. It just wasn't moving in the same pattern each time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. What do you think, Brandy?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
No. I think Brandy's froze.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, she's froze up. Yeah,
Okay, here I am. I was like waiting
back.
for it.
We're back. We're like, we think Brandy's froze up. So Brandy, would you go back? Would you go back there?
I'm freezing up again.
Oh no.
Okay, here I am. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I think everybody's like out of work, out of school. Everybody's trying to use what little, what little I have out here. I would go back.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely go back. I think I would go back in a smaller group, perhaps.
Yeah.
Maybe half of what we had.
How many square feet would you guys say the building is? Guessing.
That's a math thing that is way out of my purview.
Okay, so Brandy, compare it to the museum. The museum's 14,000 square feet. So what would you say?
It is at least 10 times larger, if not bigger than that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, I put the video out on Facebook, and Heather and I we were so trying to get it on YouTube. It just wasn't happening.
Yeah.
But we were sitting there trying to get this on YouTube, and it was like, I started walking down. It was on the west wing. I think it was the west wing, and I kept walking and walking and walking, and it just didn't end. It was just, and it was scary because when you're walking, it's like you almost have tunnel vision, because from the cell door to where the railing was to go, straight down, they were so close.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you were just expecting something to jump out at you at any second. You were just, I was just waiting for, like a shadow figure or something to come around that corner, step out of a cell, do something.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So according to their website, it's 250,000 square feet.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's impressive.
Well, Brandy said that there's a prison right there too.
Oh yeah.
A working prison.
Yeah. The active reformatory is there right behind that. So you can't take pictures out the windows that face that side.
Wow.
Right. You can look all you want to.
Well, yeah.
You just can't take any pictures.
Is there cameras so they could tell if you took pictures?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I haven't tested it.
I'm not going to test it. I'm not testing it.
Right.
Nope. I'm not going to test it.
They said they have cameras all over. Which was part of the reason at the beginning they told us all these do's and don'ts of being in the prison, and they're like, some of these we've had to add because of stuff that we've seen live on the cameras. So
right. You guys have some questions, so I'm going to throw them up here. So some of it's on the murders too. Glenn Dannison asked, did he kill in the south in winter and north in the summer? Okay.
So I don't think that his pattern went like that. It was more like for a while he was on the East Coast, and then things went west, following the train tracks. So it had more to do with just where those particular tracks went, and it didn't seem to. Because Villisca, when was Villisca? Villisca was in the summer, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the summer. Yeah.
I think it was June.
Yeah, June 9th. I'm trying to think of when some of these were that. If that was a pattern, I would think that, honestly, I think the authors would have pointed that out. They gave the dates and stuff, but there wasn't really much, emphasis put on the time of year that I can remember.
Gotcha.
What I'm looking at right now, the murders from 1909 to 1912, they look like spring through fall. So it doesn't look like any of the early ones were done in wintertime at all. So I'm thinking that's maybe where he went somewhere to stay warm, because I mean, I'm sure it's a hard life living on a train, you know, bouncing when it's winter outside. So I'm saying any season was his except for winter, except for the Barnhart family in Johnson County, Kansas, was December 7th. That's the only one that was, well, that's still actually fall. That's not even in the winter solstice yet, but that's still fall, but it's cold.
Where was that
in Kansas? December.
Where was that in Kansas?
That is in Johnson County.
Which is Kansas
Johnson
City.
County. It's the Barnhart.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, the Bernhardt family. They're kind of screwed up because some say Barnhart, like in some of the papers, and then some say Bernhardt. So, but they have it listed as Bernhardt.
Yeah. So that is the Kansas City, Kansas side. Johnson County is.
That's the Kansas City, Kansas side. Yes.
Yep. All right. You guys got more questions. Let me get to them. I remember how to get to them here. All right. So Mark asked, do you know if all the murders in each state happened at the same time frame? And then did he move on to another state, or were they all splotchy, meaning a couple kills in Ohio a couple times each year?
So part of what they did when they were narrowing down which murders they thought were from the man from the train, it had to do with the time that they occurred and the proximity to the next location. So even some of them that are 100 or 200 miles away, that was still close, relatively speaking, compared to how far away other things were. So yeah, it wasn't necessarily something in each state, so to speak, but within a decent train ride, an acceptable train ride of each other in a certain time period. Yeah.
You know, this brings up a point, like with the train and stuff. We've also had Josh Hurd on our show, and he's a friend of ours, and he owns Malvern Manor. And it's speculated that possibly the killer from the Villisca actually stayed at Malvern, because it used to be a hotel. So just kind of a little.
And that could be true. That could be true. I mean, because you got to figure, we don't know the train schedule. So what if he committed the murders?
Well,
moved on.
Villisca is only 30 minutes or 40 minutes from Malvern.
Driving.
Driving.
Yes. But you got to remember, back in the 1900s, cars, they were coming out, but they weren't, not very few people knew how to drive a car.
Yeah.
So it wasn't one of those. So he'd have to get there by other means. So
the train.
If you think about it, if it's like, say, it's still like two weeks or so before the train comes back by, he's going to have to wait that amount of time to get back on the train.
Yeah.
Or 3 weeks or whatever it would be. Who knows? But he'd have to wait that amount of time. So could he have done that? Yeah.
Yeah. And if you think about Malvern, the train tracks are right across the road.
Yep.
So
they're right there.
They are right there. Kind of interesting. Okay. Here's a question on ghost. 39 Sean Man asked, do you all use ghost boxes in your investigations, and what type of equipment are used?
Heather?
Okay. So I brought a bunch of equipment and then used like next to nothing, which tends to be the way that this works, it seems like. But I what all did I, oh, the cat balls, the motion detecting, motion activated toy balls. You use those. And we had although I don't remember it being on, but we had the Mel meter there. I carried around my spirit box, but we never used it. But I usually on investigation that gets brought out at least once. But like Randy said, that's whenever you're tired of walking for a while or whatever, like it's kind of closer to the end of the night, like, all right, guys. But that didn't really happen for us. So we didn't have a chance to use it this time, but we have that kind of stuff. But I've got various pieces of equipment, nothing like super fancy, but it seems to be the more investigations I go on, the less equipment that I actually use. At least that's the trend.
I get that.
Well, and we also have to mention, I really had her hooked up to my audio the whole night. So she was running around with all of my audio. So so she did use equipment. She just had mine. Yeah. And some of that stuff, of course I haven't went through it because that's hours and hours. But we did have in that attic, where we were seeing that glowing light, we did have where we would hear things banging and feet shuffling and stuff moving. Yeah, that is all on audio. That is audio.
So real quick,
as of right now, I don't have any audio that says, "Hey, how are you? My name's George." I don't have any of that right now. I have, your typical walking, things moving type of stuff, which is still awesome, all in the same. I just don't have that class A, "Hey, my name's George," type of thing.
So Heather, what is your favorite piece of equipment to use?
My favorite piece of equipment to use, if we're using equipment, one of my favorite things to do is use the spirit box, actually, just because it's interesting how that Estes method ends up working. If I'm under for Estes, I cannot stand like a spirit box just on and loud for the room and everybody's guessing what it says. That drives me insane.
Me too. And the white noise drives me nuts.
Right. If you have somebody with headphones on, and we're doing it that way, that's probably my favorite thing to do. But otherwise, that's got to be my favorite piece of equipment to use is the spirit box when used with headphones only.
I would agree. I like that too. And I really like doing the Estes method. We do that a lot. Brandy, what's your favorite piece of equipment?
Well, mine has to, again, audio. And I don't care if I have it or Heather has it. It was good. I mean, as long as somebody has it, I'm good with it. I like it. It did give me a chance to use other things, other parts of my equipment, which are, like I said, I have a few key pieces, and that's all I really like to drag along with me. The only thing I didn't have was my infrared body cam. That is the other one that I like to have on. I mean, I've got 50 foot that I can see in complete darkness with that thing. And plus I use it for validation. But I have to tell you about this light that Heather was telling us about. You're not going to catch that on film. It's simply impossible. I was trying to figure out every way to do it. Even if I looked at, I was thinking about the IR, all of that stuff will cast a light, even a little bit. And this thing will not, you can't see it. And at some points when you're looking at it, you kind of have to look at above it or below it or to the side. Sometimes you couldn't see it straight on. You had to kind of look around it, but it's there. You can see it.
Wow.
But the most amazing part is, Heather was sitting next to me on the one side, and I think there was 4 of us up there. And we're watching this light and it's moving and we're talking about it. This is when I think we got all a little bit more comfortable with it. Our friend Holly was a little bit more terrified of it. She didn't like it when it got too close. She was like, okay, wait, whoa, nope, too close. But when we got all a little more comfortable with it, we were just sitting there and we were watching it come. and we were asking it questions. I think Jolene was asking questions, and for yes and no, this thing would it would brighten, like it would like flicker, like it was kind of like that was a yes when it got brighter, and then it would go dim again, and then you'd ask another question and it'd go bright. It was really an odd thing. But as we were sitting there, and I'm sitting next to Heather, and I'm like, I can't see anything. I can't see a thing. It's something stood right in front of me. It stood there, and I couldn't see nothing. It was black.
So
but it didn't stand.
So Heather was sitting next to you at that point.
Yeah.
So Heather,
Yeah.
did you witness that too?
No, it just stood in front of Brandy.
Yeah, it stood in front of me.
Yeah, no, I could still see. So she's saying, I can't see anything. Everything's completely black. And I'm like, that wasn't what I was experiencing.
Right. And then we went up there later and here comes the light and we're watching it and blah, blah, blah. But I had changed places with another lady named Debbie. So I had changed spots with her, and I'm sitting in another chair. We're kind of sitting over just one chair over than where I was before. And it happened to her. And then Holly leaned into me and she goes, I just saw something step to the side. It's standing in front of y'all. I see it.
Yeah.
And then that's when if you focus in on it, because it was blacker than black, you could watch it move just a hair, and then it'd come back and stand in front of Debbie again. So I found that really weird, as if something was up close and personal with us. It's just, and it would block out everything.
Interesting.
And we couldn't see it.
Wow. That's interesting. You guys
it was very strange.
There's some more questions here. Let me get to them real quick. All right. Henry asked, if you go back, what would you do different?
I don't know.
Well,
I think I'd go to the basement.
Yeah, we
didn't get to go down to the basement.
That was the only thing. I was trying to make sure that we got everywhere, and the basement was the one place that we didn't get to.
Gotcha.
Well, Heather, that place is so huge. How are we supposed to get to the basement when we were going everywhere else?
That's true.
But we were so fascinated. I mean, honestly, the attic is where we were fascinated because we couldn't wrap our head around what was happening up there. And I think we spent, I would say, a vast majority of our time up in there. Because if you want to know the truth, I've seen full-bodied apparitions. I've heard EVPs, Class A EVPs. I've heard disembodied voices. I've seen all this stuff, but I have never seen what Heather showed me, ever. So was I intrigued? Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would be too. All right, next question. Paranormal Pixie asks, do you have a preference for an item to record audio?
What about you, Heather?
Nope. I'm usually not recording audio unless it's on my phone, because I know that I'm not going to go back through the hours that I record to listen to it. So I just don't even bother.
Right.
I leave that up for somebody else.
Yeah, it takes me time. But I do it. And I'll say this. Now, I have a Zoom, which is 360 sound, and I live listen as I'm going. I don't like that, because when you're hitting all the way around you, sometimes you don't know where these sounds come from. You can't tell. And it's like, I could say, hey, I heard this in front of me. And then everybody who is not listening were like, no, it was behind us. I have a hard time telling the difference of where it is. Now, I like to use Olympus. Olympus is a 180, so it'll get directly in front of you and to the side. So when you point it in that direction, you're just going to get the sides and the front. So when I hear something, I know it's general direction. But when I get into that 360 sound of the Zoom, that's when it gets a little bit crazy. But I do like the Zoom. if I'm not listening live, because does it pick up more? Absolutely. Is it more sensitive? Yes.
Mhm.
But
Gotcha.
if I'm live listening as I go, it's an Olympus.
Mhm. Okay, so Heather, I don't know if Brandy reached out to you after the last time you were on the show, but when this show went off, I told everybody goodbye, and there was a voice that said bye-bye. Did you hear that? Did you hear about that?
I think that that's the one that Brandy was telling me about. Maybe. Or there was some other EVP type thing that happened once. I feel like this has
Well,
happened more
this
than
is
one
going to
time.
get you because you were on this show.
Well, I don't know if I have it on here. I might have
Oh,
to just
no.
send it to her. Hold on.
But anyway, as we were talking
Yeah.
and we went through the show,
Yeah.
and Krista was signing off, and she was the last one, and she says, bye-bye.
Hold on, I'll get it back on here.
Okay. And she says, bye-bye, right?
Mhm.
And then that little itty bitty voice you can hear going, bye-bye, right behind her. Sounds like a child's voice. Now, if you remember correctly, after that show that we had done, and I'm like, you guys, I heard something. It was like right here.
Right. Yes.
heard
That's what I
something.
remember.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I'm like, I heard something. It was right here. Well, it came up on the audio.
Nice.
Yep.
Yes, that's what I'm remembering. Was that
Yeah.
conversation? I
Yeah.
heard something.
So
here.
anyway, our tech guy, Randy Gilbert.
I'm working on
you-
putting them up there, so just keep talking.
All right. So Randy Gilbert caught it and he's like, oh my God. He goes, did you guys catch that? And I'm like, well, I thought I heard something. I said, I didn't know what it was, because we were saying goodbye. I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't listening because it was that quick, and immediately after she said bye-bye, well, she started playing our extra. So, there was music. And so I didn't hear it, but I heard a piece.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's funny. So Randy sent us a clip, and the first clip it's like real quick. It's like how the show went, and you hear saying Krista bye-bye, and then you hear the little voice bye-bye if you're listening close. But then he enhanced it and sent us the one that's enhanced of the little girl saying bye-bye. And it is strange. So we were talking about you having things happening in your home at times and blah, blah, blah. And we talked about that, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And all I could sit there was thinking, I'm like, I hope that's at Heather's house because I don't need anything else. I don't need anything else. I've got enough at my home. She can take this one. Let it not be me,
Well,
because
I didn't hear anything, but you did. So
I know. Because I was like, I've never heard a little girl in my house before. I mean, I've heard a male voice, but I've never heard a child's voice, which
Mhm.
to me is alarming. I don't like children's voices.
I can't find
So
it.
as soon as Krista gets that out, we'll let you hear it. But it was
it
was
a different
amazing.
way. All right, hold on. I got to do it a different way because it's not going to
Okay.
work for me that way. So hold on.
Excuse
That
me.
one.
Ooh, it kind of hurts my head when I coughed. Oh,
Mm.
I'm trying to work through this migraine. It's not letting up. But I mean,
Yeah.
because we were just sitting there talking about all the things that the haunted things and da da da. And you had told us a few things that had happened in your house, and we were just like, I wonder if it could be from her house.
Mhm.
No, not mine. Not mine this time.
I was hoping it
That's
was
what
from
I'm
your
going
house.
for. I know.
I was hoping it was from your house.
Okay, I think I can play them now. So
Okay, see if you can play the original first,
okay, I
which
can't
it's
really
hard to
tell which
hear
is
it,
which.
but it's right after Chris. You hear Krista say bye-bye, and then you hear a little tiny voice.
Yep. Okay, hold on. I got to share my screen to do it. Do you hear it after I said it?
I didn't hear the whole thing. I missed it. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll play it one more time. Bye-bye. As soon as I get done saying bye-bye. One more time. Bye-bye. Did you guys hear that?
Okay,
Okay.
now
There's-
play the enhanced version. Now this one is just the little girl saying bye-bye. Can
Yep.
you loop that?
Hold on. I can play it a couple times.
Because this will get you.
Did you hear it?
You're not sharing the screen anymore.
Oh, my bad.
No,
Okay.
we didn't hear it, Krista. Not one bit.
Your screen to this one. Share. All right, here it is.
Bye.
Did you hear it?
Bye.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Don't it sound like it's saying bye-bye?
It does sound like that.
Kind of weird. Isn't
That's
it?
at Brandy's.
You think that's a Brandy's?
What do you mean?
Well,
Sure, Heather, just blame it on me. Oh my
Right?
God. And
Well,
you know, and I hate to say that because you know I keep saying that. I have enough. The little girl voice is new.
yeah, and I don't have ghosts in my
That's
house.
new.
So, yeah. So I don't know. We've been debating whether it's your house, Heather, or it's Brandy's.
Nah, I've never heard a girl voice here.
Neither has Brandy.
I haven't
I
either.
don't have ghosts.
Yeah, but I'm gonna.
We're just gonna go with me, and everybody can
gonna go-
sleep better. How about that?
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, you know what? We are coming up on the hour and a half mark, and I do know
Yes.
that you do have a migraine. And honestly,
I
I'm
do. I
I'm
do.
tired. So we appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. And thank you to Catherine Gay and to BMR, both of you. Thank you very much for the super chats. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
For coming on. You'll
Thanks for having me.
have to come back on. You're welcome anytime.
Yay.
Yes, absolutely.
For
Awesome.
sure. And tomorrow night we have Dennis Carroll, and we're going to talk some angels, some good stuff tomorrow night.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And for those of you who won't be on tomorrow night, I want to tell everybody Merry Christmas. And yeah, we'll see y'all tomorrow night. Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Thank you, Ristal.